Hello everyone and welcome back to Franci Talks Japanese Art. I'm Franci, and for today's video, for our journey through Japanese art history, today I want to talk about a kind of prehistorical clay figurines from Japan called Dogu. Dogu are to me incredibly fascinating. I love looking at them, I love reading about them, I love talking about them. So I do hope that you are going to enjoy this video as well. Dogu were made by the Jomon people, a prehistorical culture that we have talked about before in my channel. So if you want to learn more about them, just go watch my last video. But for now, all I'm going to tell you is that they existed throughout the year 14,000 before Common Era until 300 before Common Era. This was a very long time span, and these people are considered semi-sedentary hunter-gatherers and early agriculturalists, and they worked a lot with clay. They created a lot of beautiful objects out of clay, and especially clay vessels and pottery. And they had a very creative approach towards working with clay, and we saw this creativity expressed to their vessels in my last video, and in today's video we're going to see how this creativity was expressed in their dogu, in their clay figurines. The word dogu in Japanese simply translates as earthen figure. That's because they are figurines and they are made out of clay, and clay of course is found in the earth, in the soil. These figurines started being made around 11,000 before Common Era. At their earliest stages, they were simply in the shape of torsos with biologically female characteristics such as breasts, narrow waists, and flared hips. Reaching the middle of the Jomon period, these figurines became ever more three-dimensional, ever more elaborate, and many of them kept this biologically female appearance, and this was done in an even more accentuated manner. For example, with flared hips, we said, narrow waist, breasts, and also bulging bellies. The bellies are believed to be an expression or a representation of a pregnancy, of a pregnant status. Sometimes they even feature what is believed to be a linea nigra, which is a kind of dark line that appears on the bellies of pregnant people. One of the most famous examples of this kind of dogu is the so-called Jōmon Venus, which is this beautiful and sophisticated dogu which stands on 2 feet and with the arms outstretched. We immediately notice the big thighs, the wide hips, and the bulging belly. And also, if we look around it, we can see how the back side was actually carved out in order to put all the focus on the belly, on the hips, and it's a very sophisticated effect. We can have a look at the head and we can see what we can understand as a headdress or perhaps even a hairdo. And compared to the shapes of the body, the facial features have actually been rendered rather simply, with simple slits in the clay. During the Middle Jomon, actually the dogu production was quite varied, and in fact not all dogu are so three-dimensional such as the Jōmon Venus, but others present more flat bodies such as this slab-formed dogu or cross-shaped dogu. Both these names work and they indicate how they were made, so using a slab of clay, or their shape, which was in the shape of a kind of a cross with the arms outstretched. These dogu feature faces in a kind of circular or inverted triangle shape, which often merge with the torsos, and the arms are usually outstretched, creating this kind of cross shape. Sometimes their bodies are decorated with cord marks. These kind of dogu as well can feature quite prominent sexual attributes such as breasts. I will talk more about the dogu's uses and meanings later in the video, but for now we can say that these Dogu with prominent sexual characteristics and female characteristics are believed by archaeologists to have been involved in some kind of fertility ritual, or perhaps rituals which had to do with pregnancy and having a good and healthy pregnancy. We see quite a varied production of Dogu in the later part of the Jomon period, and especially we can look at some of these Dogu styles which are standing on 2 feet, and they feature quite sophisticated and, well, hard to understand head designs. For example, I'm thinking of the horned owl Dogu, which has very elaborate shapes, which we don't really understand what they were supposed to represent, but have been compared, or they kind of reminisce about the shape of the heads of horned owls. And also I'm thinking of the heart-shaped Dogu, which also stand on 2 feet with the arms outstretched, and then they are characterized by this head which features a kind of indentation at the top, which creates a heart-shaped silhouette. The head is really, I think, the main focus here, while the rest of the body is represented in a rather simple manner, especially compared to other Dogu which we're going to see next. These are the Dogu which were created during the final Jomon period, and these Dogu are called today the goggle-eyed Dogu, and of course their main characteristic, their focus is these very large eyes. And the whole of this Dogu is actually very beautiful, very ornamented. They feature different types of decorations such as dots, incisions, swirls, cloud motifs. Really, the whole body of this Dogu is covered with decoration. There have been different hypotheses throughout, the last years about what the meaning of this Dogu was supposed to be. The large eyes have been, for example, compared to goggles which prehistoric people may have used in the snow. This theory is not supported anymore by the most recent scholarship. There's been theories which I would like for you to ignore about the origin of these designs, but I like a description given by the art historian and scholar Tsuji Nobuo, who puts forward the idea that these figurines may have represented ancient gods who are to us today unfortunately unknown and unknowable. These goggle-eyed Dogu and other Dogu as well are hollow, and this actually is an important element to take into consideration, because them being hollow means that they were rather difficult to create, to shape first of all, and also to fire. Firing this kind of hollow figurine without breaking must have been quite an effort, and this hints to us that these were the product of skilled craftspeople who made the figurines. And also some of the Dogu present traces of pigment, which means that they must have been painted. So we have seen a variety of Dogu. The ones that we have seen today are mostly from northeastern Japan, which was the main era of production of Dogu, but actually different regional variations exist as well. And if you'd like to see them, if you'd like to know more about these regional variations, let me know, because I'm thinking of maybe making another separate video about this topic. But for now, we've seen all these different types, and more exists out there. But there is one thing that is in common with all these Dogu, and that's the kind of role that they must have played in Jomon society. What we think that they played was an important ritual role. Now, one thing that we have to note is that only very few Dogu were found intact or in good conditions. For example, the Jōmon Venus, when excavated, was found intact in one piece. Or this other figurine, which is a sitting figure with the palms of their hands pressed together. What was discovered by archaeologists is that at the bottom of its legs and its feet, there were traces of natural asphalt, which means that the figurine had been repaired. However, this was not the norm. And the norm, in fact, was that most of these Dogu figurines have been found in pieces, broken. And you might say, and it would make sense to ask this, is, well, if they've been buried for centuries, if not thousands of years, doesn't it make sense that these figurines would have broke just simply with the passage of time? However, there's more hints that indicate to us a systematic breakage rather than a natural breakage by being buried and the passage of time. For example, what we should note is that the Dogu were often found broken in specific points at specific body parts. And it is believed that the methods that were used to make the Dogu may have actually made the breakage easier, that these techniques were used on purpose to make the breaking easier. This technique that was used from the mid-Jomon onwards, if I remember correctly, was called the lumps of clay technique, which means that different body parts were made in different lumps of clay, and then they were stuck together to create the finished Dogu. This means that certain parts, like where the limbs attach, were easier to break. And Japanese archaeologists like to make this comparison of the Dogu by saying, think of how a chocolate bar is made. Isn't it made in a way that makes it easier to break exactly where the squares are? And the other reasons that I find even more compelling to hint to us about the breakage of Dogu is that at certain sites, as many as 1,100 Dogu were found, and none of them was left unbroken. What's even more compelling is that in some of these excavation areas, in some of these locations, none of the Dogu parts that were found fit together, but sometimes they were discovered to fit with other Dogu parts that were excavated in different locations, sometimes hundreds of meters away. So we made a kind of compelling explanation for a systematic breakage of Dogu, and the reason why this matters is that it can give us some hints or perhaps a kind of understanding towards how they were used or the role they played in society, because it hints towards a kind of ritual use, a ritual nature of Dogu. So far, there are two theories that are taken into consideration by academics about why the Dogu were broken. The first one is that the Dogu may have acted as a kind of proxy for human beings. So, for example, if a person suffered from certain ailments, pain, illnesses, if the person broke Dogu in the corresponding body part of where their pain or illness was, this may have been believed to act toward healing that person. And the other theory is that the Dogu may have represented a slain female deity from whose body parts, after it's been slain, different types of food arose, such as rice and barley. And these are foods that have been proven that they were cultivated and eaten by the Jomon people. The reason why this is believed is because there are records from later in history, the 8th century, like the Nihon Shoki and the Kojiki, where this kind of meats are recorded. However, with the information that we have so far, with the excavation that have been done so far, there is no way of knowing exactly what Dogu represented and how they were used. However, I think that we can still appreciate them, greatly appreciate them today, especially from an art historical perspective. We can appreciate the skills, the techniques, the know-how that they required to make. We can appreciate the creativity in their decoration, the patterns, the swirls, the shapes. We can appreciate the design choices that were made to accentuate certain shapes, certain body parts. So this makes me truly believe that they are extraordinary examples of human creativity. So that's all I have to say for today about Dogu. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you like the video, if you feel like you learned something, don't forget to click like or leave me a comment, because I'm happy to see that. And if you want to support the channel, you can check the description. There's ways to do that there. But for now, I just want to thank you again for watching, and I just hope to see you again soon. Bye!